Charity Witt, the world's strongest Barbie.
She was forced to sleep in a closet.
Probably the strongest girl that I ever met in my life.
She's a Titan game champion, holds several world records, and can deadlift your car. She could have any man she wanted.
And that left everyone wondering.
Why would she marry a monster?
I was drawn to him because he was scary. It didn't matter if he was mean to other people as long as he wasn't mean to me.
Domestic violence cases have been on the rise.
I'd have panic attacks before going home. I'd be sleeping in the closet with the dogs. There was only one door and we were safe in there.
People thought she could never be broken, but no one knew what was happening behind closed doors.
She's super strong. She can defend herself, right?
If I don't feel safe leaving the dogs home alone with him, I have no business being home alone with him. We met in the gym. He walked by. He was largest person I'd ever seen in my life. I was drawn to him because he was scary, and it's like, well, if I can get this person on my side, it feels safe. Once we got married and moved in, like, things continued to escalate and get worse. I'd have panic attacks before going home, and I'd take the dogs with me everywhere. I didn't even like leaving them at home because I didn't know what kind of mood he'd be in when he got home. He would come home from work, and if I was on the couch doing schoolwork or studying, I didn't even say anything. I'd try to make myself as small and quiet as I possibly could because you don't want to poke the bear, you know, you don't want to set him off. There were so many nights where I'd be sleeping in the closet with the dogs just so we'd have our space, and there was only one door and we were safe in there.
Why would a woman this strong feel the need to find protection from a man like this? Is it possible that before Charity was pushing over 1,000-pound walls, that she was a much different person? Someone who was fragile. Someone who was afraid of life.
I was having a meeting with my boss. I was just standing there, and all of a sudden, I could feel something was wrong. My vision went black. I could hear ringing in my ears, and then it was like sharp pain down my entire body from like my chest area. And next thing I know, I'm waking up on the floor. I drove myself to emergency care, thinking that it was just low iron. I had fainted, you know, something like that. And then explaining what had happened at emergency care, they realized that I had had a heart attack and I was diagnosed with cardiac arrhythmia.
But this isn't the first time that young Charity almost died.
I went through sexual abuse. I was only 14 the first time and then 16 the second time. At 16, I had attempted suicide because I just didn't see any hope. I had swallowed an entire bottle of pills that should have stopped my heart, especially with my condition. When I woke up, my dad was checking my pulse. He was in a panic over me and like feeling my arm, and it was like I was disorientated, still pretty drugged up, and honestly confused why I was still there.
Charity needed to heal, but everywhere she looked, there were reminders of what happened to her. So at 17, she packed her bags and left town, and slowly started working herself to death.
I was working 80 hours a week. I was bartending, waitressing, housekeeping, customer service. I did everything.
But after her heart attack, things needed to change. The doctors wanted to put a pacemaker in her, but Charity wouldn't let them. Instead, she hit the gym, hoping to turn her life around. And that's when she met him.
It was a very like push-pull type of relationship. Honestly, it was probably the child in me that still wanted to find that protection. He seemed very large and very scary. So I was drawn to him, honestly, not like even scared of him. I was drawn to him because he was scary. And it's like, well, if I can get this person on my side, it feels safe. It wasn't good from start to finish, but I didn't know any better, and I didn't know I could have better. He was freaking out about something he had found on my computer and realized that I was looking at other places to live and was having a whole meltdown. And I'm shaking because I'm reading these messages on my phone and I'm ignoring all these calls that are coming in from him. And I look over and my two dogs are just looking at me like big eyes, like, what's wrong, Mom? You know, and they're shaking. And I'm like, what am I even putting them through, you know? Like, they're seeing me like this in this state, and like it's so much stress on them too. Like that's not a good life for them. And I'm like, well, if it's not a good life for them, like why am I doing this to myself? Okay, if I don't feel safe leaving the dogs home alone with him, I have no business being home alone with him. I waited it out, and then I thought about my options, and I didn't really have any. My parents lived 2 hours away from me at the time, and I was like, okay, like, and I said this prayer, and I was like, God, if my mom answers the phone, I'll go home right now. And it was 11:30 at night, and you know, she's in bed at 9 p.m. every night. And I called her, and she answered third ring. I said, I can't go home. Can I come to you? And she didn't ask any questions. She just said yes. So I went home and I started over. I had like $150 in my bank account and never saw him again.
Charity once again looked to the gym for a way to heal.
I had never deadlifted before, and I was at this like old school powerlifting gym, and they were teaching me how to set up, and I maxed out for the first time ever learning how to deadlift, and I pulled 275. Everyone there was losing their minds, and I didn't know what that meant. You know, I had no thing to compare it to, like nothing, but I just loved how powerful I felt. And that would probably been the first time my entire life where I was proud of myself. So I fell in love with the whole sport. I gravitated towards it so much because it was the one thing in my life like that was predictable. It was like a year following that, I had become one of the Southeast top trainers in the gym that I worked at. And I was an international elite power lifter going for world records in strongman, and I was lifting 300-pound stones. I'm pressing 225 logs over my head until it started causing me issues. So I made an appointment, checked in with my cardiologist, and he basically told me I was a ticking time bomb. I made the decision to retire. It was right at that point where I retired. I felt like I had lost my identity. I was no longer a powerlifter. I was no longer a strong woman. And then Titan Games reached out to me. I had 2 months essentially to prepare for God knows what. I had no idea what we were doing or how I would be tested.
With her heart once again threatening her life, Charity pushed on, ready to finally prove that she is unbreakable.
So I did the first, and it was the big rower with the chains, and that was the first competition I did. I had hurt my shoulder during that competition, just trying to get it up, and the chains were getting caught, and honestly, it just showed me, wow, this is not only physically taxing in my strength, but endurance-wise, like, this is gonna be very difficult. Especially since Dwayne Johnson had requested men and women do all the same weights. So we had these same challenges the men had.
This is Mount Olympus.
The first Mount Olympus, I was already so exhausted from having competed earlier, and then I'm going right into Mount Olympus. I had fallen down into the barrels. I had exerted so much energy trying to get out of the barrels and climb out that I was way behind. And I felt like the entire time I was competing in that challenge, like I was just like falling behind, and you could see it in my face. I'm like, how am I ever gonna catch her? How am I ever gonna catch her? I'm going down the slides and we get to the ball and chain, and I don't even see what she's doing. I'm just focused on finishing at this point. I'm so exhausted, but then I start to move and I'm like, oh, this is easy. And so I just start like walking with it, you know, backwards at first, and then it's like, oh, I can do this one hand, you know, and I'm just like going through, because at that point, all that strongman training had come into play, you know. It's like my posterior chain was so conditioned to drag things, lift things, walk with things. I got back to the, you know, the thing that you're supposed to break through, the cement block. It wasn't until like I heard the crowd screaming that I realized I was the only one up there. And she couldn't get, you know, the ball and chain to move, and I was like, oh my God, how did I get head, so at that point it starts kicking in, and I'm just hammering away, not even like hammering the right way, just like blindly just trying to hammer through this cement block. When I completed that one and I put the key in, and honestly, that's when it was the most surreal for me, because up till those final moments, I thought I was losing. But it was the fact that even though I thought I was losing, I was gonna keep going. I think honestly, it's that mindset of I'm doing the best I can. I'm gonna give it my all regardless of how I place. That's what honestly even got me to that point. I think honestly it was more for me feeling powerless as a female to feeling empowered as a female. It's more than physical strength that matters. You have to have that mental steadiness and stability and stay grounded, and you have to have a foundation in yourself.
Nelson Mandela once said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." Sometimes, if we fall to the darkest depths, maybe we can rise to the greatest of heights.